This episode is a little bit tough. Given the cultural climate, perhaps this episode is really timely or horribly mistimed, but I don't know. You will be the ones to let me know that. Recent events in America and now across the world, they affected my thinking, and I really had to decide whether or not I was going to record this episode, and I opted to record it. The man from outside arrives with a knife and says, "If you don't let his arm go, I will cut yours off." She screams, "I don't care." The daughter runs as fast as she can to the field to tell her mother. She's screaming her head off, and immediately the alarm is raised. They pin him to the ground, and the man has no chance. Before we praise him too highly, let's look at some of his other views. Being born other, being born different, isn't a crime. It's the people around you who create that crime. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, I'm here. Alfie is here, he's with me. Although he is in the bad books, let's just say it involves a chicken carcass, a bin, and some very bad doggy behaviour at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's a mess. It was a mess. So police are looking into it just now to figure out what exactly happens, and I'll have a statement for you in due course. Thank you for your continued outdated phrases. I'll be doing a roundup at the end of some of your weirder ones. But for now, it's story time. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Let's go to Tanzania, which is in East Africa. Tanzania has an estimated 56 million people living in the country. Now, politically, Tanzania has had its issues and its troubles and continues to. And look, here's the thing, right? I'm not going to pretend to be a political podcast. If I'd wanted to create a podcast called Extraordinary Political Stories, I could have, but I didn't. But you know, there's just times you wander into politics. head-on politics. Not politics with the small p, politics with the big P. But I do need to lay just a little bit of the groundwork here, just so that I can contextualise the story. So, currently Tanzania is run by President John Magufuli, who, for better or for worse, has really made some radical changes to the lives of the Tanzanians. Now, they have a nickname for Magufuli, and that is the Bulldozer. What a nickname! The Bulldozer! It's so grand. So, I think it kind of sums him up perfectly. The Bulldozer. The best I ever get is the Bazatron. I didn't hate that. I've had the Bazinator, Baztastic, Bazman. I'm not really sure about any of these. If I'm honest, I'm saying them out loud and I'm going, I'm not really sure. I once got, and we're not going to talk about it, but I once got a baby doll Baz, and we'll just not speak of that again. So, Magufuli, he is a very complex character, and my God, he should probably be his own episode. Now, he divides people with some of his measures. Some of the workers and people who have, grown up and lived in Tanzania will say what he's great for is he's real grassroots. He's a president who listens. He actually comes out into the markets, to the fields, to the communities. He sees the problems and he fixes them. Actually fixes them in terms of within a week of a visit to, a market, he'll say, this is what you need installed here. You don't have an office to run your business. I'm going to build you one. And then a week later, it's built. Now, before we go praising him too hard for some of these accomplishments, let's remember that in 2016, he closed down every single HIV and AIDS testing programme in Tanzania. He took away the rights for free HIV testing. He took away free condoms and any level of support to the LGBTQ community. Also, under his rule, anyone who tries to campaign for gay, transgender rights is immediately arrested as a gay supporter. He went as far as saying this: if there is an LGBTQ person who has a Facebook account or an Instagram account, all those who follow this person are also criminals. It's very clear they are just as guilty as the homosexual. Okie dokie then. Well, you're all fucked. You're all guilty. Just by following me, you're all guilty. So good luck if you are ever in Tanzania and you want to check out my Instagram. Go to jail, basically. And the treatment of women, don't even get me started. We could be here for a year. But there are horrendous practices of old women being killed because they're believed to be witches, women being slaves for men. I'll not get started on women's rights, because if I was to start that, I'd end up punching a hole through my wall, and we don't want that. But it is a fascinating culture, Tanzania. And I think what's really fascinating is it's the people. There's hard working, there's creativity, there's people who are really dedicated to caring for people. Real deep care for your family, for your friends, for your children, for your community. And it really is about community. It comes back to being about that over and over. And there's belief in values. There's belief in things that have been passed down from elders. And, sometimes that heads towards slight superstition. But there's cultural beliefs that are great, and there's some that are harmful. There's some that are deadly. And there's some that become a reason for you to fear your life. Imagine this, if you will. A young mother, a Tanzanian woman aged 26, has grown up in a rural village. She works hard in the local fruit market. She's got 2 young children. They're both aged 6. She has twin boys. So she's got 2 sons and she's got no husband. The father of her children is a married man and he lives elsewhere with his family. She was essentially a one-night stand many years ago. So here she is. It's a normal working day. She's finished her work. Her sons have been at school and now it's dinner time. So she feeds them. She puts her 2 sons to bed. And when they're asleep, she climbs into bed herself. And the little house, the little humble house that they live in, goes to sleep. It's 1 a.m. It's dark and she hears a noise outside of her house. Now she has lived in fear of this moment. Most nights it keeps her awake, but tonight she's asleep, and when she wakes up, she knows this is going to be hell. A group of men, 5 of them, have entered her house, and she immediately runs towards the room in which her sons sleep, but it's too late. 2 of the men are already inside the room and her children are being lifted from their beds. She screams at the men to let her sons go, but they raise their hands to warn her if she screams anymore, she will be silenced. Now she's begging them to let her sons go. The 2 6-year-olds by this point are fully awake and they're screaming and they're crying, and the men warn them to be quiet. As the men try to leave the room with both boys, she grabs the one closest to her. So one of her sons she can get to. She grabs him and she won't let go. She has him by his arm and she is holding on tight. And the men are warning her, let go now. But she won't. She's got one of her sons and she's holding on for dear life. One of the men shouts to the others who are waiting outside. He says, bring a knife. The man from outside arrives with a knife. And the man holding the child says, if you won't let go of his arm, I will cut yours off. And she screams, I don't care. Do it. Just do it. And the man does. He begins to carve into her arm, the one that's holding her son, and she is screaming in pain. She's bleeding all over the floor, and the man says, do you give in? Do you give in? And she won't. She screams, no. The men, they start to grow frustrated that she won't let go of her son. Now, her other son is completely out of reach and she can't get to him. The men from outside start shouting, leave her, leave her. As long as we have one, let's go. And they do. The men, they stop carving into the mother's arm. They let her and the son go and they take the other 6-year-old twin with them. Now, she races out of the house. She tries to chase the men, but they're fast and they get away. She returns to the house. Her one remaining son is screaming and crying for his brother. And he's looking at his mother's arm, which is bleeding, and the bone is beginning to show. She tells him to calm down. And slowly the neighbours, they arrive. And here's the thing, when they arrive, it's not with shock. And it's not with questions. They aren't asking what happened here. They aren't asking where is your other child, because they know. They know that the 6-year-old who was taken is gone, and this young mother will never see that son again. That's it. The 6-year-old's life is over. And slowly the neighbours, they sit with her through the night, and she eventually falls asleep from exhaustion. They've managed to bind her arms in makeshift bandages, and as she falls asleep, she holds close to her one remaining son. The following day, the sun rises, and Tanzania goes about its business as usual. So why was he taken? Why? Why this child? Why were both boys a target? Well, it's because they were born different. They were born with albinism. Now, albinism is a condition in which you're born without certain pigment in your DNA, and albinos just don't produce the right amount of melanin, and melanin is the chemical which is responsible for things like eye colour, hair colour, skin colour. Very scientific of me. Hence the reason that, people with albinism are very, very pale. Often have very white eyes, very white lips, very poor vision, because their eyes just don't develop correctly. Now, we don't really use the word actually albinism an awful lot, but we do use albino. I think in other places, I think in America you don't say, I think you say it albino. I don't know why I did it like that. Albino, like you were some valley girl. But yeah, I would say albino. And very simply, it really is just what I described. Now, for you and me, walking around our lives, it's not uncommon to see an albino person, child. It doesn't matter. You don't really think much of it. It's common. I see it quite a lot. However, here's the difference. If you were born in Tanzania, being born with this means you are marked. You are marked from the day you were born as something to be hunted. You are the white goat. You are a ghost. You're unworldly. You're bad luck in the villages, and you are to be gotten rid of. The term white goat, it comes from a man who lived for years with a grandchild of his who had albinism, and he treated his grandson so badly that essentially it was like one of his animals on the farm. He just treated him like a goat. He made him sleep outside. He made him eat off the land. He wouldn't allow him in the house. And the nickname the White Goat came about because of how horrifically this child was treated. And that's where the White Goat comes from. Now, what does it actually mean if you have a child who's born with albinism? Well, the first thing it does is it divides people. It divides families. If your daughter or your son has albinism, there is a high probability, not a full probability, but a high probability that your family will cast you out. If you've brought the white goat, the sign of the dark magic, into the family, then you need to leave. Now, can you imagine what that's like for mothers and for fathers who don't want to have to give up their children? And what the fuck is it like for these children? Oh God, it's awful. Now, do all Tanzanians feel like this. No, they don't. They really don't. Not all of them. And this example, as horrible as it is, it shows that. A mother who has 2 children, a daughter aged 12 and her son who is aged 8. Now she's out at work one day, she's in the fields near her home and her 2 children are at home. Now her 12-year-old daughter is looking after her little brother who is 8. Both of the siblings have albinism. Now, in the way that you would ask an older sibling to care for a younger one, that's fine, that's what we do. It's a very, very different situation when you and your sibling are albino. Because as well as just general care, you have to be aware you're constantly in danger. And as the 12-year-old and the 8-year-old are at home eating some lunch, 2 men burst into the house. Now both kids know straight away why they're here. And the 12-year-old, what she does is she puts herself in front of her brother to try and protect him, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. These men are strong, they're going to get what they came for. Albino blood, that's what they want. Now before she can do anything, the 2 men take her younger brother and they leave the house. The daughter runs as fast as she can to the field to tell her mother. She's screaming her head off and immediately the alarm is raised. Now, I'm not glorifying what happens next. I'm just telling you. The workers next to the mother hear the screams and the shouts that her son has been taken, and they immediately jump into action. The 12-year-old girl points in the direction the men ran with her brother, and, well, how would you describe them? A mob? An angry group of villagers head in that direction, trying to get the boy back. Almost 30 people from the village join the group as they run and they see the men up ahead. And one of them has the 8-year-old over his shoulder, and obviously he's going to be running slower. He's slightly lagging behind. The other guy, he's got an 8-year-old boy on his shoulder, so of course he's a little bit slower, and he keeps trying to run. Now he sees the mob are chasing him, and he knows what's coming. He realises he cannot keep going with this boy over his shoulder, so he throws the 8-year-old boy into some nearby bushes and he continues to run. But the mob of angry villagers, they catch him. And when they do, maybe it's mob mentality or maybe it's just the sheer hatred that he'd stolen a child. They begin to attack him. They pin him to the ground and this man has no chance. He's kicked, he's punched, he's beaten by the villagers. And once they've had their revenge, they return to the bushes where the 8-year-old was thrown. They pick him up and they carry him to his mother. The man who'd just been beaten will be taken to the local hospital and will die later that evening from the attack. This man who came to steal the 8-year-old was the uncle of these 2 children. He was the brother of that mother working in the field. And why? Why would this be happening? Why? Well, because of ancient beliefs. And ancient beliefs, like I said when I was talking about cultural things that are passed down, one of them is this. Albino blood or albino bones can bring you wealth, can bring you fortune, can bring you happiness. And this is why they are hunted. This is why these people have to live in fear. And the story I just told you there, I mean, it's one of 100 stories of how hard families have to work to hide and to fight for survival. Now, here's the thing, plenty of children are born with albinism and they go on to live their life in Tanzania into adulthood, but it's not an easy road. It's constant fear. It's being threatened in public. It's people stopping them and staring at them. Some of the Tanzanian government will say it's a lack of education. That's the major issue. Kids are not taught that if a person's born white, they're actually just the same as them, only with a different skin colour. They're still growing up in your community, they're still sharing your values, they're still sharing all of that, but it immediately creeps in this kind of fear, this difference immediately. And all sorts of beliefs start to kick in, which are just ludicrous. I mean, some villagers will believe in certain parts of Tanzania that there is a Caucasian man who goes around in the dead of night sleeping with local women, and that's why white children are born. Okay, sure. Here comes the Caucasian man, he's gonna have sex with you. No, that's not what it is. Some believe this one, and I was like, oh fuck, are you kidding me on? Some believe that the babies who are born with albinism are already dead. That's why they're white, because they're ghosts and they're not human. Superstitions in certain villages will say it is such bad luck to bring a child up who was born with albinism, and it will only bring bad things to your household. What's even more horrendous is that some parents also believe this. Now, again, I'm not placing blame here, because if that's what you've been culturally brought up to believe, I can see that, but there's cases where mothers give birth to an albino child and they will hand their baby over to witch doctors because they just don't want that child, because they see it as such bad luck. So as I said, with the witch doctors, it's a little bit about if you grind the bones down into small parts and you place them inside little bits of jewellery and you wear them, then you will be brought riches, you'll be brought all these wonderful things in your life. So, you could be wearing a ring that's got a little bit of albino ground up bones in it. I mean, come on. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Night out. Oh, Margaret, that's a lovely ring you've got in your hand. Where'd you get that? Oh, the local witch doctor. Oh, that is an unusual stone. What is that? Well, it's not a stone, actually. It's a bit of bone from an albino child's arm. I mean, fuck off. Just a fuck right off. And, some of the witch doctor stuff, it's weird as hell. I watched a documentary, right, with this witch doctor, and she is batshit crazy. She gathers together all the locals, right? She tells them that the spirit of her grandmother is going to arrive soon, and that the grandmother needs to know that albino blood is being sought. This is what her spiritual grandmother needs to know. And then she starts singing in her grandmother's voice. I mean, I was going to say she's nowhere near as good as me at singing, but whatever. And then the documentary maker intervenes, tries to ask her about this, and she denies it. She goes, oh, it's horrendous. Oh, the hunting of albino children is horrendous. Well, stop pretending, you big faker. We just watched you fucking talking about it. Oh, honestly. Right, I'm going to tell you the story of Halzan's hand, which provides, I think, a little bit of hope, a little bit of something that made this story a bit brighter for me. I guess I was asking the question at this point. I got to the point where I thought, right, I understand what's happening, but what are Tanzanians doing about it? Like, what's actually happening? And so, Halzan is 8 years old, and she's walking to school one day on her own. Here she is, off to school, off to learn, and a car pulls up right next to her. The driver pulls down the window and he sort of looks at her, stares at her. Now, Halzan's used to this. Being albino, she's used to being looked at, but something about the way that this guy just rolled down the window of the car and stared at her for so long, like he was almost studying her, made her feel uncomfortable. Anyway, she goes to school, she gets on with her lessons, that's fine. She almost puts it out of her mind. 2 days later, there's a knock at the door. And it's the same man. And he's come to ask her mother if he can get a glass of water. He says he happened to be passing by and he's all of a sudden very thirsty. Could he possibly get some water? So the mother lets him inside. Halzan immediately recognises him as the man from the car 2 days ago. She gets a bad feeling. Another 2 days pass and guess who knocks on the door again? The same man. Asking for water again. Now this time Halzan's mother is suspicious and she won't let him in. When she says no, you can't come in to get a drink of water, he produces a knife. He pushes Halzan's mother out of the way, he storms into the house and he cuts off 8-year-old Halzan's hand and he runs from the house. It's at this stage her mother decides Halzan has to go to one of the albino camps. Now, the camps. What am I talking about here? There are camps which exist in Tanzania for people with albinism. And in these camps, people can be as young as 3 years old and they can be as old as 50. Now, when you look at them, they're portrayed a little bit like schools. But others will say they're maybe more kind of like a prison to hide away albinos. Some parents will drop their young children off in these camps and they'll never return for them. The children will grow up under the care of those who run the places. Now that's not all parents. Some parents will bring food, bring clothing. Clothes is an interesting one actually, because when I watched a couple of interviews, one of the teachers who is doing an absolutely incredible job in this camp, he says the thing we need most is clothes. These kids wear the same clothes for years and years, and they outgrow them. They don't fit them anymore, but we don't have access to new clothing. And obviously, albinos need access to protective hats. They need clothing which is going to protect their skin from the sun. But, I think this is nice, some local groups have formed, and what they do is they make clothes and they drop them off at the camps for the kids. These camps are interesting because they're a real double-edged sword. They're like a sort of ray of light and a bit of hope for those who live constantly in fear of death. But they're also a place to hide away the albino community. Let's go back to Magufuli for a second. The figures show that in the last 20 years, there have been almost 80 registered albino deaths. And almost 120 people put in prisons for attacks and murder on the albino community. Now, what this president will say is the superstitions about witch doctors is utter nonsense. This idea that it can bring luck, nonsense. But if that's the case, why does there continue to be more and more demand for camps to protect these people? And this is where he really falls down. He says, albino hunting just really isn't a big problem in my country. I beg to differ. If you look at these camps, you'll see a variety of things. Some, yeah, they're hard to look at because it does look like people just caged in to rooms. Others, depending which one you're looking at, you'll see kids who are playing freely together. They're having fun, they're making friends, they're outside, they've got all their protective gear on, but they're outside. At least they're having fun. They're making friends. Classrooms are there. There's learning. There's teaching. But what's also grim is when you look at it, there are so many children with missing body parts, and some of them are really, really young. The other thing that you will see is a huge wrought iron gate, which is closed almost 24 hours a day. So just to go back to Halzan for a second. She is now 20 years old, and having entered that camp at 8 after that horrific experience and being taken from her family, at 20 years old, she got to a point where she understood what it was that she wanted to do, and that was politics. She wanted a voice. She wanted to speak for people with albinism, but more than that, much, much more than that, she wanted to be visible. She wanted to be seen. She looked at these camps and thought the same things that I'm thinking, and maybe you're thinking, that yeah, great, there's a level of protection, there's a level of safety. Yes, of course there is, but essentially, are we just locking people away? So she weighed those questions up. This led her, at sort of 15, 16, into a sort of real inquiry into politics. And with the help of lots of teachers and lots of people around her, she last year took a brilliant position within the Tanzanian government, where she now gets to actually be visible and be seen as someone in the country who has been born with albinism, and yes, okay, is missing a limb through the absolutely tragic practices that are happening, but she can stand up on a stage and she can speak to people and she can talk and she can say, this is not entirely who I am. This is one bit of me. This is ridiculous that I had to go through that at 8 years old. But what's so interesting about her when you watch her is she doesn't really want to harp on about the albinism or about the fact that she is missing this bit of the limb. She just wants to move things forward. Move things in all ways, in all directions forward. And so maybe, in a way, her mother might be right. When interviewed about having to put her daughter into a camp at 8 years old, Halzan's mother said, losing her hand was the best thing that could have ever happened to my daughter. And so ends the episode. Okay, well, there we go. Again, it's rough stuff, but it's worth knowing. Again, timely, not timely, you tell me. Alright, I'm just going to end this now with the phrases that you lot have been sending me. Now there's a few that I'm like, I have got to find a way to bring this back. Let's try this one. He can put his shoes under my bed any day of the week. Never heard that. Love it. Hot to trot. Love this. Now here's the ones I'm suspicious of, right? About as much use as a cock flavoured lollipop. Come on. Who's ever said that phrase? Right? Away and stick your arse out the window and throw stones at it. What? Up your butt with a coconut. I mean, come on now. Why are these two bum related? And finally, caught your beard in the letterbox. What does that mean? What does any of this mean? But my favourite. He was as high as a giraffe's balls. Great, excellent. Right, well, let's end that there. Okay? And I will just remind you, as I did before, safety first. Be a 2-metre Peter, not a 1-metre Michael. Okay, goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.